In the earlier lectures, you have seen that that Hindu number system created a revolution. In fact, it is the greatest achievement of mankind because the entire modern development is based on complex calculations, and this wouldn't have been possible without Hindu system. So you know that Hindu system makes the four operations plus, minus, into, divided by very simple. These were very complex for primitive number system, for example Babylonians or Chinese or Egyptian numbers or Roman for that matter. For example, if I were to say that add 340 and 120, and you will immediately do using the Hindu system. But this calculation, which uses the number symbols 3, 4, 0, etc., and the idea of place value system, was not there, 2000 years back. And the problem now is that children are taught this from the start, and that's what we are advocating. We are saying that they should be taught the way earlier human beings learned number system and the basic arithmetic. And this is exactly what I did in the previous lecture when I explained you in this lecture primitive natural number how visually the operation plus means and what actually is. Then you can actually extend it to greater than, equal to, or less than. So child actually sees it visually. Now I discuss another operation, for example multiplication. But before I move on to this, again I remind you that if there are two objects and you're teaching this thing you're teaching plus in the classroom of kindergarten children, then you should ask them to count this way, which is explained in the earlier lectures, and then say if I total this, then the other objects are this, and this is nothing but joining the two. Basically your plus is nothing but, if you remove this, plus is nothing but actually picking this here and then shifting it and joining the two to give the right side thing like this. And this is what primary students should do, and they should get a feel of plus addition. And similarly logically you can explain the negative operation as well. But before I go on to that, first let me explain the multiplication idea. And if I were to multiply these two numbers, for example this number, I'm repeating, I'm not saying purposely 1 2 3 4. This is how the child has understood the number in pre-primary stage. And I say multiply this by this. So you have to simply say that this is an operation. Where you are simply replicating the rows. For example, this is, let's say, a row, and this is where you are multiplying this by this. Then what you have to say, that replicate the rows on the right with the same number of times that it appears here. For example, for the first one, so the best way student can identify the process of multiplication is that first of all they should understand that this, as I repeated often, that this is a number and this is yet another number, and the two have to be multiplied. That is the objective you have. So this row has to be repeated the number of times you have these cells here. For example, for the first row, for the first this cell here, the multiplication means reproducing this row simply down below. So what does this mean? Take this row, and this is the first corresponding to this here. So you have this row corresponding to this. The second row will come just below this and will correspond to this cell here. For example, you are repeating this, so this becomes, for example, this is how the second iteration takes place. The third one is corresponding to this, and you won't say third. This is for this cell. When we say, so the multiplication then becomes this one, and the last one here is the replication of this row for the last time. So for every cell here on the left side, you reproduce this row one over another. So last one is this. So students should understand that this is actually the product of these two numbers, and this has to be then brought into the same line, because the number for children is these cells in single row. So you will now therefore adjust this in a single row, and for this you will shift this, and then this one has to be shifted like this one to be shifted like this, and the last one to be shifted like this. Now this finally is the product of these two numbers, and exactly the feel child should get after doing the process that I explained in quite detail. You should construct similar such exercises for small two numbers, and avoid saying this is actually 4 into 1 2 3 4 5 6. Don't say this is directly 4 into 6. Rather make these blocks, let the child do the iteration that I showed it to you, and then show the product number like this, so that he or she gets the feel of what actually is happening in the multiplication process, rather than cramming those numbers and without knowing what exactly they stand for. And how to teach complex operations. For example, you say this into this number here plus this number here should not be taught in the classroom initially as 2 into 4 plus 3. This is not the ideal way of teaching young minds. Again, I'm repeating because you are assuming them to understand complex Hindu system of initially itself, but they should be taught with this blockers, the way I have shown now on the screen, where you have this number, which in Hindu system we obviously know 2, but you will not say this in the classroom. You say this number into this plus this. The child should do this like this. Now this, for this he has to create a row, he has to simplify this first, so he has to understand that this is nothing but this. He has just put this row twice, one over other, plus this expression here, and then he should be able to further simplify, because he has to bring everything in a single row. And for that purpose, what he should do, you should encourage him to do, is take this bottom row and put it like this, so it gets a new number. Now actually it's a new number in the single row, and that new number should be added with this number, and this is when you remove this, and addition is of this with this earlier number is this, and that's how he should get the feel that this operation is nothing but this new number here. Instead of saying 4 or 3 or 2, this is how young mind should learn plus, minus, into, etc. And I recommend that teachers should create such exercises, number of such exercises for the class, and let them do this without saying 1 2 3 4 5 6. So slowly as you will progress, children will start realizing that when you give bigger and bigger blocks problems, then it becomes more and more difficult for them to create these do these operations through the way we have discussed till now. And that's the time they should be told that this is the primitive way. It is you know, they will understand obviously that for small operation it is easy. One can easily do it to understand and use. Laws of arithmetic can easily be done. These are the pros, but the this is the pros, and the cons is that for larger numbers it will become more and more practically difficult to work this way. So that's the time children will start understanding that how actually historically the changes took place from one primitive system which was easy and laws of arithmetic could be done easily for smaller operations, but very very difficult for larger. But slowly the Hindu system will come into their mind as we'll progress.